All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the security groups and the setup of those. So you can see the endpoint has been set up here, and I've copied this over, and I'm using SQL Pro. This is a MySQL client that I like to use from my desktop. So I copied this over, and remember we set a username of running for brews and a password of running for brews. Nothing too creative there on us. And now if I come in here and test connection, we'll see that it's going to time out, and that's because the security group is smacking us down. So by default, there's a timeout saying it cannot connect. By default, what's happening is Amazon's basically setting up a firewall and not letting us through. So we need to enable access to that. So if I come in here and take a look at the security group, so the DE5 security group, and right now, it's kind of tripped me up a second ago because it is saying a port range of all, but the source is its own security group. So what I want to do is edit this, and I want to add in a rule, and there's my SQL. Oh, MSSQL. Thought they had MySQL here. I'm not seeing it. Ah, there. So 3306 and an IP or security group. And what I want to do is enter in my IP. And if I come over here, see, here's my IP. So I'm just going to copy that. That's my public IP address. So that is the IP address my ISP has assigned to me. And I'm not running a VPN right now. So that is the endpoint on my IP address. So I want to come in here, and I am going to paste that in and say /32, and I forget exactly why it does that, but that's a network notation, and I could explain that to you, but I'd have to look that up. But I know you need the /32 there. And so I'm saying MySQL TCP port 3306, so a custom source, and that is just for my IP address. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. You can see that is now saved, and these changes will take effect immediately. So if I do a test connection, you can see that the connection did in fact succeed. So now I can go ahead and connect to the database, and we can also see that we have the loyalty DB. So I did set that up, and we can see that this is an empty database. So now we have the information that we need to connect. So we are going to be using the user ID of running for brews, the password of running for brews. This is the host name here, the RFB loyalty, the .cd, blah, 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 at US East, RDS, Amazon, AWS.com. And then loyalty DB is the database name. So that's all going to go into the JDBC connection URL. So that's all information that we need for our database connection. And we can set up the database in an update mode so that on the initial connection, our Spring Boot application is going to go ahead and connect and update the database and create those database tables for us. Now, if I really wanted to lock this down, we can go through a security setup, and this is something if I highly recommend, and if I'm running in an enterprise, I absolutely do this. So right now, running for brews is a very powerful account. It is a schema owner. It has the capabilities of doing DDL, or data definition language statements. So it's able to create and manipulate and, more importantly, drop data structures. Very, very good practice would be to set up a service account. I'm not going to be able to get into it in the depth of this course, but a very good practice is to set up a service account with limited access and have your application run that service account. So that service account is only going to have the ability to do data manipulation operations, the minimum amount of security that it needs to be able to do its job. So if your application does get compromised, or if the database credentials somehow get compromised from your application, a malicious attacker could not damage your database. They'd be able to do data operations within the scope of the user account that you set up, but they would not be able to do things like drop tables and export the database and very malicious type activity like that. So this is a very, very common security practice inside the enterprise to prevent unintentional or malicious actors from doing bad things to your database. But in this course, we are going to be running with a single account. And I just want to point out that it is a rather powerful account. If I had more time in a broader course, I would show you how to set up a service account for use. But for this, we are going to be using our little Running for Brews user account.